Our gospel text for today is taken from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verses 9 to 15, which is called the longer ending of the Gospel of Mark. These verses are a summary of the appearances of Jesus in the other Gospels, including the Gospel of John. In these verses, there are three parts. The first is the appearance of the Lord to Mary Magdalene, which is mentioned by the other Gospels as well. Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene and he confirms that he is indeed the risen Lord. He makes Mary Magdalene an apostle of his own resurrection, and she goes and tells his disciples that he has risen. But unfortunately, the disciples pay no heed. The disciples will not listen to her. The disciples turn a deaf ear to her witness. The second is a summary of the Emmaus scene in the Gospel of Luke. He appeared to two disciples as they were walking away from hope and into despair, as they were walking away from Jerusalem and into Emmaus. Those disciples experienced the Lord in the second scene of today, in the breaking of the bread, and they returned and told the other disciples that the Lord had indeed revealed himself to them, but they too were not believed. Finally, he appeared to the 11. And he appeared to the 11 while they were at table. This phrase, while they were at table, is a very significant phrase because it brings to mind the Last Supper of the Lord. The table is a symbol for that time when the Lord broke bread and identified the bread with his body. When the Lord shared the wine and identified the wine with his blood. So in that symbolic sharing of the bread and wine, the Lord was sharing himself entirely in a symbolic way here, but through his life before the supper and after the supper on the cross. And that is why the Lord appears while they were at table, and the Lord berates them for their obstinacy. They are unwilling to believe, and the Lord invites them to believe, and he makes even this unbelieving group witnesses of his resurrection. The last words in the gospel text of today are, "Go out into the whole world and proclaim the good news to all creation." The evangelion, the gospel, the good news has to be proclaimed. And the proclamation that one makes is not only or not merely a proclamation in words. It has to be a proclamation also translated into action. The translation of that proclamation is not only to this or that particular group, but very clearly to all creation. And when the Lord uses the term all creation, he means not only to human beings, but to the environment about us. It is very clear that our conversations today, that our actions today have to be such that take note of the destruction of the environment. The more we use, the more our carbon footprint is. The more we accumulate, the more our carbon footprint is. The more we waste, the more our carbon footprint is. We need to ask ourselves whether this is how we proclaim the good news to all creation. If we decide to use less, if we decide to give away to those in need so much that we have, then we are proclaiming the good news of the Lord not only to human beings, but also to creation. Let us ask, as we end this Easter season, this Easter octave, whether we are willing to do that. How will I, as a disciple who has experienced the resurrection, proclaim this good news to all creation.